either a troubled person that was a danger to Christianity, or I was a tool of Satan. My brother-in-law, when my kid got diabetes, he called to tell me that it was because I stopped believing in God, that God's protection was lifted from my house and allowed Satan in and gave my son diabetes. But those were exceptions, and he's a little nuts anyway. So, now we don't have to talk to him anymore, so that's good.
I remember when I became chronically ill over 20 years ago, my father, the preacher, said to me, "Do you think that if you accepted Jesus, like, he would make you well?" And I remember it was among the most obnoxious things that one could ever say.
Yeah, it's really, everybody could use everybody all around could use a little bit of a humility. Whether it's, I find atheists in general to be fairly arrogant people, and there are religious people that are, so cocksure of their beliefs, and if everybody would just step it back a couple notches, and just learn. I mean, it sounds cliche, but if they just would, instead of preaching, if they would just act out their faith, I think we'd all be a lot better off.
Did you see the movie No Country for Old Men?
I did, yeah.
Do you remember the scene where the bad guy is with the Woody Harrelson character in his hotel room, and the bad guy says to him, like, if the rule that you've always followed has brought you to this place, what good is that rule?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
Like, for me, I'm a convert to Orthodox Judaism, and I've lost so many friends from that transition to Christianity to Judaism, and I feel like I have staked everything on this conversion, so I have a huge amount of ego invested in this switch. I could not leave it because I've invested so much. How much ego did you have invested that you'd devoted a good 20 years or so to Christianity, and was that why it took like 4 years for you to come out of the closet about your loss of belief?
It did. It was ego, and it was a lot of self-denial. I couldn't believe that this world that I had built myself around, and it wasn't being a mainstream journalist was not, it's not the most popular thing to be this Christian or public Christian, which I eventually became, and it was. I didn't even realize how much I had invested until a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. He asked me what's new, and I said, "Oh, I don't know. I lost my faith." And he just stopped, dead in his tracks. He's like, "What? There's no way you." So yeah, that was tough, and I think your mind, at least for me, my mind just wouldn't let it be. Though I tried to ignore it, and I tried to do a number of things, Bible study, prayer, retreats, and none of it worked 'cause it was just gone. I mean, it was just like there was no light on it. It was just gone, and so eventually I just had to, because I was just going crazy, and I just said, I just got to be honest, and it was tough, but I think living in the truth obviously is the best way to go, and it was a real relief once I finally accepted what had happened to me.
How much do you seek out people who've been on a similar journey?
Well, since my original essay in the Times, and also since even just in the weeks the books come out, people are really seeking me out just to, say, thank you. I just got an email yesterday. Some woman said she was absolutely so depressed and hurt, and because she'd lost her faith, and that was her whole life. And she just read my book and said it was, I think the biggest healing moment of her life or something. So that was very cool. And I do have. I went through a loss of faith with a number of people who dealt with the Catholic sex scandal, and these were all real devout Catholics, including one former monk, and actually two former monks, and we all have a similar bond because we see, we see how morally bankrupt the church is, and it's something that we once loved greatly. And so, those folks have become some of my best friends as well.
How well did your career in journalism prepare you for being the subject of journalism?
Terribly. It was, we're taught never to put ourselves, which I think is a mistake actually, but we're taught never to put ourselves in the story. Don't, report on the story. Don't be the story. Blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, you're not only part of the story, you are the story. And it was incredibly hard for me to put the most intimate details of my life in there, to lay myself out on the line like that. Many sleepless nights. Many times the editor would right where it's like the most raw place, he'd send back an edit and said, "We need a little more here. Go a little deeper here." It was like having a root canal on a daily basis. So that was tough. No, journalism, it does not prepare you for that. But I think if you're talking about journalism, I think if journalism was a little more personal, I know at the LA Times the most popular column one stories are the ones that are personal in nature, and I think it's an old-fashioned notion that is changing obviously with the new media, but newspapers should pick up on that as well.
What surprised you in the process of writing, editing, publishing, and releasing this book, if anything?
Well, initially, when the essay upon which this book is based, I thought the night I was going to come out, I thought I was going to be vilified, and it was the dumbest thing I'd ever done in 20 years of journalism, and I put myself through it. It wasn't like someone didn't suggest it. I volunteered for it. So I just was kicking myself, and the response I got from the piece, I got nearly 3,000 emails, which I'm told is by far the most in the Times history. About 99% of them were positive, and most of them were from Christians. And there was I had no idea there was such a hunger out there to read about, kind of an honest story of doubt. And people were just, they couldn't be more complimentary, and it became required reading at Fuller Theological Seminary, and it became a subject of a lot of sermons that people would send me the sermons. And so I was just astounded at how it resonated, because I did not predict that. And I think the book is the same way. We just had our first book signing, and the Borders people where we had it said it was the largest crowd in a few years in Southern California that they had, and we sold out, and the people still wanted the books, and so I'm happy that it seems to touch this chord in people.
How difficult was it for you to make the transition to start offering your services as a media manager, aka sort of publicist?
Yeah, I put that in I haven't gotten one job, so I haven't really pursued that. I think I put that on the website, and just in case someone wanted it. Apparently, no one does. So.
I've done the same thing. So.
Yeah, I haven't. I've got some other projects. I'm pretty close to with a partner. Actually starting, if you can believe it, a local paper for Newport Beach, Costa Mesa. Looks like we're getting the funding, and he was a longtime publisher of a local paper here that the Tribune's pretty much destroyed, and the community really sought us out to say, can you please have a local paper? We don't want to lose our paper. So I think we figured out a model that's similar to the Voice of San Diego model. To provide that paper, so I think that will eventually be my full-time job.
That's nonprofit journalism, isn't that the Voice?
Well, that's not. I mean, it's similar to the Voice of San Diego, except for in Newport Beach, all the investors want it to be for profit. So it's